Okay,
Link to
so
stream.
um, yeah, just tell me kung ano na, kung live stream na tayo.
Uh, wait, check. Let's check.
Okay, good evening po sa lahat. My name is Lee. I'm from Pampanga. Okay, mukhang from all over the
All
Philippines
right,
siguro
we're
itong mga
live.
bisita natin.
Okay, we're live back again at Ielts Filipino Nurses Group. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. I Miss Gladys.
Hi, Mr. M. So we're back. So we were graced by the World English Review to give us more lecture with regard to writing task. So now
Hmm.
I would like to uh, give you our speaker, which is Mr. DJ De Jesus. So hi, Mr. DJ. Good evening.
Hi, Sir Lee.
Hi, good
Sir
evening.
Lee.
Just call me Lee. Lee is fine.
Okay, Sir Lee.
Oh,
Lee,
okay na yan.
rather.
Na, wag lang
Lee.
sir. Lee lang. Okay. Parang sa IELTS, bawal lang sir. Okay, kailangan first name.
Yes. All
Okay, the
right.
floor is yours.
Floor is
All
yours.
right. So good evening to all of you, to our participants. Okay, pahay naman dyan sa, ano, sa chat box. So type nyo lang, hi, so that I know that I'm not alone. Minsan nakakapraning when, when you're doing online classes because it's hard to see the reactions of the people. In fact, sometimes we cannot see them. Okay, so patype naman ng hi dyan. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening. Good evening to everyone. All right. So tonight's topic is writing task 2, and this is probably the most challenging part of the IELTS for you nurses. Okay, because as you know, it can be easy to pass, to get a high score in listening and reading. Okay, and even a little bit in speaking, but most of the nurses fail sa writing nila. Okay, the UK requires you to get a 6.5 in writing. Okay, while in other places like Australia, New Zealand, the requirement is 7. Okay, and unfortunately, most of the test takers from here in the Philippines, they only get 6. Okay, when it comes to writing. So, what's that for a moment? Okay. So let me share my screen with you. Okay, here you go. Hope you can see it. So yeah, welcome to my guesting dito po sa group ninyo. Okay, so my name is Lee. Okay, some rules before we start. You can type your questions in the chat box or in the comment box, and yeah, you know what? You can ask anytime. Okay, and we will make sure to answer all of your questions before the 2 hours are up. Okay, number two, enjoy the seminar and don't hesitate to ask questions. It's free, and your host is an expert on the subject. Yeah, you're gonna know why. And then if you want to ask about our review programs, they will be given within the session po. Okay, so just a little self-introduction, very quick lang po. So my name is Lee. My full name is Lee J. De Jesus. I started teaching in 2005, so almost 16 years ago. So I teach IELTS, OET. In fact, I was a former OET interlocutor or interviewer. Okay, and I also have a civil service eligibility professional level. I also teach call center preparation and language training. Okay, I've taken the IELTS academic, IELTS GT, IELTS computer based, IELTS paper based. My overall IELTS score is 9. So whatever you need, I'll be able to help you out. Most importantly, I'm probably one of the few teachers in the Philippines who has a Cambridge CELDA qualification. So this is an English teaching course from Cambridge University. It's expensive. It's 100,000 pesos for 5 weeks. Okay, and um, I think we're one of the few review centers that have like a CELTA qualified teacher. And what you need to know, I'm not blonde, obviously. Okay, I don't have a British accent. I'm Filipino, by the way, Kapampangan. Taga Kenny Upugeng, Pampanga. But I still got 9 in my test. So I hope that inspires you a little bit. Kasi posible, it's possible to get a 9 even though you're not a native speaker. And I'd like to introduce another one of our teachers. Okay, Sir Barry. If you enroll with us, he's gonna be one of the people teaching you. Okay, and I think he had a free class for this group last Tuesday or Wednesday, I forget. Okay, and he's really good. Overall score is 9. Also has a CELTA, so dalawa po kami. Most other review centers, ang teachers nila na may CELTA ay zero. All right. Okay. Maybe I'll discuss this later. Okay, mamaya na yung promotion. So let's talk about writing. So the writing test takes around 60 minutes in total. Okay, hindi pala around, exactly. Okay, so isang oras po. And you are required to complete two tasks. So task one and task two. So what's task one? Since you're taking the academic test, dahil nurses po kayo, you're gonna be required to write a report. So they will give you a chart. It can be a flow chart, a bar graph, even a map. Okay, a line graph, pie chart. Okay, and you need to write at least 150 words. What if you don't reach the minimum number required? Then you will get deductions in the score. Okay, mas maraming kulang, mas malaki ang deduction. The more words missing, the bigger your deduction. So you don't want to write below 150. You know what? For task one, 160, 170, even 180 would be a good target. Is there a maximum? No, wala naman po. If you want, you can write 2,000 words for your for your task one. However, that doesn't make sense because the suggested time for task one is just 20 minutes. So I suggest writing around 160. That will be safe enough. Okay. But tonight's topic is actually task two, okay, which is an essay. You need to write at least 250 words, and the suggested time is 40 minutes. Okay, sir, can I actually do it half and half? Can I write my task one in 30 minutes and then task two in 30 minutes? Yeah, there's nothing to stop you because they give both test papers at the same time. So sabay po nilang ibibigay yan. However, is it a wise thing to do? 30 minutes each? Nope. Why? Because task two is longer. Okay. And this is what they don't really reveal. Okay, in most websites, task one will only contribute 33% to your score, 1/3. Whereas task two is actually 2/3. Actually, it's more than 2/3. It's 67%. So the ratio is 1:2. Your task two is worth this much. Your task one is only worth this much. So what does that mean? If you get if you get 7 in task 2 and only 6.5 in task 1, okay na yon, you still get 7. Okay? However, if you get 7 in task 1 but only 6.5 in task 2, then they will give you the lower score. 6.5 lang siya. Okay? Because task 1 is 33%, task 2 is 67%. Now, how do they grade you? There are four things. And this, you really need to understand the grading criteria. Okay, because the IELTS examiners don't guess the score. Okay, they don't grade you based on your handwriting or how you look. No, they have to base it on the criteria because all tests are double checked. Speaking, writing, they're double checked, and they have to give you the proper score. Okay, so what do they look at? There are four criteria. Okay, so you have 25% task achievement, 25% coherence and cohesion, 25% lexical resource, and 25% grammatical range and accuracy. I will explain these to you in detail. Okay, let me just exit the slides. Okay. Oh, won't exit. So let me share a more detailed look at the grading system. Hmm? If you want, you can download these online. Available naman po. These are public, right? Here we go. Mhm. Yes, hi. Good evening too. Okay, it's open. Let me share it now. Here you go. So this is the official public version of the grading system for writing. So guys, I won't be discussing task 1 for tonight because I don't have enough time. It usually takes several sessions. And even our writing class usually takes about 6 hours. So I'm just gonna try to to compact everything into 2 hours. Okay. So again, task achievement, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and grammatical range and accuracy. Now, I won't discuss all of these because this is too much information. Okay, and you're not applying as examiners, you're only taking the test. So let's focus on the score that you need, which is band 7. Okay, I won't discuss band 9 because band 9 is actually boring. It just says no mistakes, they're perfect. Okay, so band 7. Mhm. What do you need to get that? First of all, let me zoom in. Oops. All right. Oops, that's too large. Mhm. Okay, there you go. So band 7, coherence and cohesion. Number 1, addresses all parts of the task. It means that your answer is complete. Okay. For example, if they ask you what are the advantages and disadvantages, you need to discuss both. Okay. If you discuss both, okay, with sufficient detail, then you're gonna get 7, right? What if you forget one? Kunwari, let's take for instance that you were carried away by the advantages that you forgot to discuss the disadvantages. Then the highest score you can get for that is a band score 5. Let's take a look at 5. It says, okay, addresses the task only partially. So you only answered a part of the task and you forgot another part. So make sure that you're answering everything that they're asking you to answer. Okay. If they ask you to discuss both views, and you only discussed one side, the side that you like, then the highest score you'll get is 5. So make sure that you understand the task. Make sure, okay, that your answer is complete, right? We're gonna have samples later. Don't worry about that. Next thing, how do you get band 7 for task achievement? Second bullet point presents a clear position throughout the response. All right. Your answer needs to be clear. If they ask you if you agree or disagree, okay, the examiner should see that in the intro, and then your body paragraphs should support that opinion, and then your conclusion should also state that opinion or at least imply it or maybe support it, right? Because I've seen, I've checked thousands of papers, yeah, thousands, literally. Okay, and sometimes I see people who say that they agree in the first paragraph, but then towards the end, it becomes it depends. You cannot write like that. If you agree in paragraph 1, you should also agree in paragraphs 2, 3, and paragraph 4 until the end of your essay. All right. I've also seen people who were asked their opinion, whether they agree or disagree with something, and then they didn't give an opinion. They just discussed, maybe the reasons and then the effects, but they didn't really choose a side. Then it's gonna be impossible for you to get a band 7 because you have to choose. Right now, some people, because they attended journalism classes in high school or in college, they always try to write a balanced essay. Is that a good idea? Not really, because this isn't a journalism test. Okay, this is just an IELTS test. Basically any opinion is correct as long as it's clear. Okay, you can be pro, you can be anti, you can be agree, you can be disagree. Okay, uh but you have to be consistent. Okay, sir, won't that look biased? It doesn't matter because it's not in the grading system. It doesn't say band 5, biased opinion. No, your opinion will be respected. They just want you to choose and they want you to be consistent about it. Okay, and the third bullet point presents, extends, and supports main ideas. Okay, very important. And this is where many people fail because, some candidates just try to make a list. Okay. What the IELTS wants you to do is, just choose a few main ideas, maybe just two, maximum of three ideas, and then make sure that you explain each one in detail. Okay, if you want, you can even use some examples to illustrate. Okay, but please explain it first, because I've seen people who give examples in the very, in the first sentence or maybe in the second sentence of the paragraph. Please don't do that. Examples are supposed to be mentioned in the middle or at the end of a paragraph. Okay, not at the beginning of your paragraph, because examples are just, you know examples are tools that you can use to further explain your answer, but explain it first. You will see this later. Okay, by the way, if you have any questions about the grading system, no need to wait until the end, because you might forget it. You can type it now and I will answer it for you if it's relevant. Okay. The next 25% comes from coherence and cohesion, or simply called organization by most examiners. Okay, let's take a look. Mm. So it says here, band 7, bullet point 1, logically in or logically organizes information and ideas. There is a clear progression throughout. What does this mean? It means you have the basic parts for you to have a progression throughout: the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Okay, so this means you need to have several paragraphs. Okay, and I've seen people who don't use paragraphs. Guys, you need to divide your essay into paragraphs. There should be an intro, body, and a conclusion. All right. If you write one paragraph, there's no way that you will get a band 7, because it doesn't fulfill the requirements. Also, you need to be logical. What does that mean? Okay, you need to present a clear central topic within each paragraph. So don't mix your arguments. Okay, for example, if the exam asks you about the negative effects of smoking, maybe you can write one paragraph for the negative health effects of smoking, and then another paragraph for its effects on the environment. And then actually you can write your conclusion already. Or if you want, another paragraph for its effects on your pocket. Okay, the financial effects, because you can actually use the money for other things. So one paragraph, one central topic. Don't mix your ideas. Okay, one idea, one paragraph. It's very important. I know you think you already understand this, but you'd be surprised at how many people make that mistake. Okay. Next, bullet point 2. Uses a range of cohesive devices appropriately, although there may be some underuse and overuse. What are these cohesive devices? I'm gonna give you some examples. Okay. They're also called marker words or signpost words or signpost phrases. Okay, so you have, in my opinion, as I see it, I believe for me, first of all, secondly, thirdly, finally, in addition, moreover, furthermore, in conclusion, in closing, in the end, thus, therefore, hence. Okay, these are all examples of cohesive devices. These are good things to use because they actually guide the reader, okay, on what you're going to do next. Okay, it gives the reader an idea of what's happening. Are you giving your opinion? Okay, or maybe you're finishing it. So in conclusion would be a nice way to mark it. Okay, so please start using them more, because it makes your discussion easier to follow, and not only for writing. All right, you can also do this for your speaking test. Okay, what if you don't use any of them at all? Then you're not gonna get 7. What if you're using them for every sentence in your essay? Then you're not gonna get 7. Okay, they only allow some underuse or some overuse. Some, not a lot. Okay, let's have a look at the chat box. Okay, so a reminder from our admin. So guys, please mute your microphone. Okay, I've actually done it. I muted it for you. So again, if you have questions, okay, just type them in. Next, the third the third element that they look at is lexical resource. So it sounds fancy, right? But it just means vocabulary. Okay, so kumusta ang vocabulary ninyo? Do you know a lot of words? Good. Do you know how to use them properly? Better. Do you know how to use them in conjunction with other words and other phrases? then that's the best. Okay. So let's take a look at band 7. Mm, here you go. So what does band 7 say? First bullet point, uses a sufficient range of vocabulary to allow some flexibility and precision. What does this mean? Flexibility means you show the examiner that you know other ways of expressing the word. In short, use synonyms. In short, paraphrase. Paraphrasing is a very important technique in the IELTS test for everything: listening, reading, writing, speaking. In fact, if you can paraphrase properly, you'd probably get very high scores in all of them. Okay. However, to paraphrase, you need to have good vocabulary. Okay. So don't just copy the words written in the question. Try to change them a little bit. However, you're also required to show precision. So don't go overboard, because I've seen people who invent their own terms. They invent their own wordings, or they use very difficult words in a very unique way, not in a standard way. So guys, we need to follow standard global English. So this is the language that you can see in literature, in from your reputable journals, newspapers, websites, and books. Reputable, okay, not just some personal blogs. Those are not considered reputable. So the thing is, if you read a lot and you remember a lot of what you read, then you're probably gonna get higher than a 7. Okay. Next bullet point: uses less common lexical items with some awareness of style and collocations. What are some examples of less common lexical items? Some idiomatic language. Okay, it doesn't mean that you have to use a lot of idioms. Okay, because be careful with this, because I've seen a lot of students who could have gotten 7 already, but then they misunderstood this. They started, peppering their writing with too many idiomatic expressions, and they got a lower score because of that. Okay, you don't need to force it because it should come naturally. What's important is you use them properly. Okay, and sometimes you just listen to the sound and you're gonna know how to use it. For instance, which one is correct? Black and white or white and black? Of course, it's black and white. Okay, so are you using them properly in the way that they are normally used? Okay, so di nyo kailangan persen. If you graduated from college, technically you should already be a 7 or more. Okay, and good news for you, you can still get a 7 even if you produce occasional errors in word choice, spelling, or word formation. Keyword here is occasional. Okay, if each sentence has an error in word choice or an error in spelling, then it's, of course, they cannot give you a 7. Remember, examiners are bound to follow this one, and it's double checked. Okay, even if the examiner is your friend, it doesn't mean you're gonna get a high score. On the other hand, if the examiner doesn't like you, doesn't mean you're gonna get a failing score, because they have to follow these rubrics. These are international. Okay, so how to improve your vocabulary? Well, start reading good essays, good samples. Okay. There are many blogs and many teachers that suggest, you should read this and that. You should read National Geographic, or you should read Harry Potter. I don't totally agree with that kind of advice. What you should read should help you pass the test. So ano magandang basahin? You read good samples of IELTS essays. Those are the best things to read. Okay. Now, the last 25% of your score comes from grammar. Okay, the complete name is Grammatical Range and Accuracy. Let's take a look at Band 7. Uh-huh. How do you get 7 here? I know a lot of people are worried about grammar, but believe me, it's not that big of a problem. Okay, it's not that difficult. Okay. Oh, here's a question about vocabulary. Okay, Lee, are we allowed to use phrasal verbs in writing if we need to? Oh, by the way, you can type your questions in Filipino. Walang problema. Pwedeng-pwede. Kasi hindi naman tayo nag-IELTS dito. I know we have some guests, okay, who don't understand Filipino, but if you're Pinoy and you're more comfortable in expressing yourself in Filipino, I don't mind. I'm not grading you right now. Baka nga mas okay pa yun eh. So, are we allowed to use phrasal verbs? The answer to this is you're not just allowed. Okay, you can you cannot survive without using phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are very, very important, and you're using them in every sentence. You're using them probably in, okay, maybe 99%, not 100% of your sentences. Because phrasal verbs are usually a combination of what? A preposition and a verb. Sometimes it can be a noun, sometimes it can be an adjective. But the most common combinations are verbs and prepositions. For instance, here's a common mistake in the Philippines. Okay, sir, can you please fill up the form? Sir, pwede bang paki-fill up yung form? Guys, that's an example of a phrasal verb. Fill up. Fill. Okay. All right. So, um, what does fill up mean? Okay. Usually you say fill up when you're referring to liquids and to containers. Okay. Fill up the gas tank. Okay. Fill up the swimming pool. Okay. Fill up the bottle. If you're talking about a form, okay, the correct phrase to use that would be what? Fill out. Okay. So guys, yeah, and phrasal verbs very important. If you've forgotten them, there's so many good tutorials online. Maybe look at a couple of those, and then try to activate your vocabulary kung nakalimutan nyo na. Okay, because the meanings of things change depending on their partner words. Another example would be sit. You can say sit up, sit down, sit in, sit out. And they have different meanings, although they share, okay, the same word, sit. So I hope that answers your question, Abigail. Phrasal verbs, very, very important. Yes. Okay, you should use them properly. All right. How to get band 7 in writing task 2. First condition, okay, uses a variety of complex structures. What are these structures? Okay, there are four of them. You have the simple sentence, okay, the complex sentence, compound sentence, and the compound complex sentence. When they say complex structures, they're referring to the three. So these are the complex sentences and the compound complex sentences. Okay. Compound sentences, not too much. Okay. Simple sentences, not too much. All right. So if you don't recall them, again, have a quick review. Lots of resources online. Okay. Um, Most simple sentences are short. So if you want a basic, something basic, a rule of thumb that you can follow is don't write too many short sentences. Avoid doing that one. Okay. If you have too many of them, then even if your writing is quite good and interesting, the examiner cannot give you a good grade because according to the rubrics, a band 7 uses a variety of complex structures. What does variety mean? Usually 70%. So 70% of your sentences in your essay should be complex structures. Okay. What if it's 50-50? So half of your sentences are complex and half of them are simple. Then you get a band 6. It says here, band 6 uses a mix of simple and complex sentence forms. What if most of your sentences are simple? Then you get a band 5. Here you go. It says here, uses only a limited range of structure. So guys, when they're grading grammar, hindi lang po yung grammatical errors. They're not only looking at your grammar errors, they're also looking at the complexity of your sentences. Okay, most people think it's just grammatical errors. No, it's also sentence, but it's also sentence structure. Okay, what else? Produces frequent error-free sentences. Again, it means that about 70% of your sentences have no grammar errors. Naku, sir, 70%, it sounds very difficult. It sounds impossible because whenever my teacher checks my paper, it seems like every sentence has an error. Guys, not all of your errors in writing are grammatical errors. Sometimes they're word choice errors. Okay? Sometimes they're just logical errors. Okay? So make sure, okay, that your teacher is counting the grammar errors. So how do they do that? How do examiners do that? They actually count the number of sentences. Okay, the thing is, they count the number of words and then they count the number of sentences. So, my question now is when you practice your writing, do you count them too? Do you count how many words you've written? If you don't, then you should consider starting, to do that. Okay, you should consider doing that. Sorry, you should consider doing that because the examiners do it. Okay, so know how many words you've written. It's less of a problem if you're taking the computer-based test because there's an automatic word count. But if you're taking the paper-based test, then you'd have to do it manually. Okay. How about the number of sentences? Do you know how many sentences you're supposed to write? Are you counting how many sentences you've written for each paragraph? If no, then you should start doing it. Okay. And of course, even if you make a few errors, you will still get a 7. A few errors. If you want a number, about 30%. Okay. If you don't exceed 30%, then you're going to get band 7. So that's the grading system. It looks technical right now, but it gets easier, okay, as you progress. Okay, may tanong ba? Do you have any questions so far about the grading system? You can ask specific questions. I don't mind. I'm gonna give you a minute to type. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, I think we have a question here. Okay, no questions yet. All right. Magtanong na kayo ah. Because people usually don't ask. They start asking questions after the session, and it's gonna be difficult to do that. Okay, so now since there are no questions, I'm gonna show you the answer sheet that they use in the test. Okay, so that you know how it looks like, so that you won't be surprised. Let's take a look at the answer sheets. Okay, writing task 2. Okay, so here is the answer sheet. So this one is almost the same as your actual answer sheet. If you're taking the paper-based test, of course, if it's a computer-based test, it's just going to be a computer screen. Okay. Okay, here's a question, sir. How many points of deduction if the mistake is only punctuation marks? Oh, that's a good question. So where do they grade punctuation marks? Do they grade it in vocabulary? Do they grade it in uh, what in coherence and cohesion, task achievement? No, it's graded in grammar. Okay, punctuation marks are graded in the grammar component. Okay, so how many points of deduction? Well, it depends on how many mistakes you make. Okay, if it's only one mistake, they can actually ignore that and you can get a 9. Okay, guys, a band 9 can actually contain one or two mistakes. Okay, especially if the sentence is very difficult, if they're not common mistakes. Okay, you can make an error and still get a band score 9, right? So how many points of deduction? It depends. Do you have a punctuation error in every sentence? Then you're probably gonna get a very low score, maybe a 4 or a 3. But if it's only a few, then you can still get a 7 there. Here's another question. Oh, how about punctuations? Are we allowed to use semicolons, colons, or hyphenation in writing? Of course. Okay. Now, what you should avoid are the following. Okay, exclamation points. Okay, because exclamation points are not considered acceptable in formal writing by a lot of people. So just avoid using them. Anyway, you don't need to to do that in your essay writing. Okay. Um, in general, you should also avoid using question marks because you're not there to ask questions. You're there to answer and to share your opinion. Okay. Um among a lot of Filipinos, there's this technique that they start their essay with a quotation or maybe by asking a rhetorical question. You don't need to do that in the IELTS test unless you've perfected it or you're very good at it. Okay. You can get a pretty good score just by answering everything directly. Now, if you know how to use semicolons, colons, or hyphenation properly, then that would be a good thing to do. Those would be good things to use, okay, because they're considered a little bit advanced, okay, and there will be a tendency. for the examiners to notice. Okay, to notice that you're good. So yeah, go ahead, please. If there's one punctuation mark you should study, I think it should be the semicolon. It's very, very useful. And if you do it properly, it can impress your examiner. Thank you. Very smart questions. Excellent. So, going back to the answer sheet. So, am I sharing it? Yes. This is the front page. So, they're going to be asked to write your name. Okay. Don't worry, they will tell you how to do it properly. But as a general guideline, okay, use all caps when doing this. I might as well show you, right? So, surname first. Oops, all caps. Okay, comma, first name. And you don't even need to put in your middle initial or your middle name. Candidate number is usually 6 digits, starts with a zero. So I'm just gonna guess here 000124. Okay, center number usually starts with a PH. So Philippines, PH 001 or 009. They will tell you during the test. And then you need to check if you're taking the academic or the general training module and use the British uh, convention when writing the date. So day first. In the Philippines, we're used to mentioning the month first, all right? But this is the IELTS test, so get used to mentioning the day first. So, kunwari, the 4th of June, okay? So, June 4, it's the 6th, and then the year is 2021. There you go. Okay, I'm going to clear them now. Thank you. So, let's have a look at the whole page there. And then you will notice this box at the bottom. Please do not write below this line because the examiners actually will be using this for grading. And don't worry, there's still a back page, so you can still write there. And then again, the bottom is for official use only, right? Sir, my handwriting is big. I don't think it will fit in the space provided. You'd be surprised. Most people only need a page and a half to write 250 words. Okay, you don't even need to fill out the whole, the 2 pages as long as you reach 250. By the way, for task 2, a good target would be 270 or 280. I attended an international conference, IELTS conference in Malaysia, and I learned, okay, that most people who get band 7, 8, and 9 write between 270 and 280 words. Okay, the tendency is if you write only 250, you tend to get a lower score. And if you write more than 280, the score also goes down. So the sweet spot is between 270 and 280, according to British Council Regional Office in Hong Kong. Okay. Sir, what if my handwriting's really big? Then you can just raise your hand and you can ask for another piece of paper. May nakahanda naman. You can always request and they're anticipating that. By the way, please use pencils only. Okay, for the paper-based test, pencils only. Mhm. Okay, Faith, I'm gonna answer this after I discuss the answer sheet. All right, thank you. But that's a nice question. So let's continue. Oops, sorry. Let's take a look at the bottom of the answer sheet. There you go. You will notice that there are two sets of duplicate boxes here. Okay, see? And the first examiner will actually use the boxes at the bottom. It's kind of weird because number one is usually the first one that they write and then number two at the bottom. Pero dito, baliktad, no? They reverse the order. Why? Because after the first examiner grades your paper, they actually cut this off. Okay? So the second examiner will not be able to see what the first examiner gave you. And that's very important. So it's double blind grading. Okay? They will not see each other's scoring. And that's very important because the grades need to match. If the one examiner gives you 7 and the other one gives you 6.5, that's not acceptable. Okay? It will be given to a senior examiner who will give you the final score. And here's the thing, it will be put on their record. Okay, if they make too many of these mistakes, examiners will not be renewed because they have to recertify every 2 years. Being an examiner is not a permanent job. Okay, sometimes they only last for 2 years and then wala na. They don't. They're not allowed to examine again because they didn't perform well. So they have to constantly prove themselves. Hindi lang kayo. You're not the only one being tested. Examiners are also constantly tested. Okay. So the first examiner will use the space here at the bottom, and then second examiner the space at the top. So I already explained this to you. TACCLRGRA, task achievement, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and grammar. Now I want to take a short survey. Okay, which do you think is your weakest area among the four? Please type it in the chat box. Is it TA, CC, LR, or GRA? San kayo mahina? Mhm. Okay, grammar. Okay, let me thank you for the reminder. Zoom in tayo ng konti. Let me zoom in. Okay, maybe 200%. There you go. Yeah. A lot of people are saying grammar. A lot of people are saying lexical resource. Okay. Do you know what the most common grades are? Okay. The most common writing grade in the world. The last time I looked, about 23 to 24% of candidates get this score. Okay. The most common score is 6.5. Okay. And what is the most common distribution of scores? Ito, you might be surprised. Okay. Most candidates get 7 in grammar. It's good for you. Most candidates get 7 in lexical resource. Okay. But a lot of people get a lower score when it comes to task achievement and coherence and cohesion. So, surprise, surprise. The most common score in the world is 6.5, 6.677. If I were you, okay, for most in general, okay, guests, participants, I would focus on improving my task achievement and cohesion and coherence. Okay. Why? If you haven't written in a long time and you don't read on a regular basis, if it's not your cup of tea, then your writing might be more disorganized than you think. Your writing might be less clear than you think. A lot of people are worried about grammar, lexical resource, but if you graduated from college, you're probably gonna get 7 in those areas. For grammar, it's simple. You just need to isolate two of your most common grammar errors. That's it. You don't even need to fix all of them. Just make sure that you get a good teacher who knows how to identify your two, maybe three, but two is enough, your two most common grammar errors. And that will probably be enough to get you your band 7 in grammar. Okay. How about lexical resource? You can actually improve this by reading, samples of high level essays. High level essays from actual examiners or people who got 9 in their test. Okay. Uh, because I've seen a lot of blog posts and a lot of YouTube videos where they claim that this essay is a 9. But, when I start grading it, it just looks like a 6.5. Dami ko na nakita. Okay. So, guys, piece of advice. Most common score is 6.677. So, improve your task achievement, improve your cohesion and coherence. Okay. Now let's take a look at the boxes on the right. So these are the penalties. Okay. This set of boxes, oops, this set of boxes under length, number of words, penalty, they actually refer to word count. Okay. The word count is very important to to the IELTS test. The examiners are required to write how many words you've written. They have to put it there. So you will see examiners with their heads down and then counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's a very common scene. Okay. Sometimes it can be funny. So they spend a lot of time counting. Well, this is less of a problem in the computer-based test, of course, but they have to write it there. Now, if you don't reach 250 words, they're also required to record how many words you're missing, and then they will give you the appropriate penalty. So in general, you get a -1. Okay, -1 for task achievement, not the whole score, right? Only for task achievement. You get -1 for every 50 words that are missing. So kulang ka ng ano, you're missing 49, 38, 27, 14 words. You get a -1 for task achievement only. Okay? If you're missing between 50 and 100, you're missing 51, 63, 99 words. Okay, then that's -2 for task achievement. If you miss more than 100, well, you shouldn't have taken the test in the first place. Okay, but if you're missing more than 100 words, maybe you run out of time. Okay, then that's a -3, and that's gonna be very, very difficult. It's gonna be difficult to pass if you're getting that big of a deduction. So make sure that you're fulfilling the basic requirements. Okay. Now, what are the rest of these boxes? Off topic, memorized, and eligible. Off topic means you're not talking about what they ask you to talk about. Okay. Maybe your essay is indirect, or maybe some of your ideas are indirect. Now, there are two types of off topic penalties. Okay. If you're totally off topic, I mean, the intro, the body, and the conclusions have no connection whatsoever to the topic, then the highest score you will get is a band score 1 for everything. Okay? They won't even take a look at the other parts. If it's off topic, automatic, band score 1 lahat yan. Okay, that's the end. It's gonna be a waste of money and a waste of time if that happens to you. Is it very common? Um, I see those kinds of mistakes maybe once a month. Okay, about once a month. Totally off topic. Yeah, maybe once a month. Okay. What usually happens is maybe one of the body paragraphs is off topic. Okay, and that will limit your score to about a band 5. If your second body paragraph or the first body paragraph is totally off topic, then you will probably get only a band 5 for cohesion and coherence, and also for task achievement. So make sure, okay, that you brainstorm a lot beforehand, and then you outline your essay so that you will avoid making this mistake. Okay, off topic, the most painful mistake ever. Next, memorize. Again, there are two types of memorized errors. If your essay is totally memorized, I've only seen this once in 16 years of teaching. I've only seen one totally memorized essay. The guy was actually amazing. So this student of mine, former student, didn't even finish grade 6. Okay, so just finish didn't even finish elementary school, but there were jobs for Australia. What kind of work? I think insulators. Okay, 200,000 a month, 200,000 pesos. Okay, so he took the chance. um However, he didn't really have very good English skills, so he just memorized an essay, and then he just wrote that essay every time he had a writing test. Okay, and I've only seen that once in my whole career. Most of the time, okay, people get this memorized penalty in their introduction because they just copy the question. Okay, they copy the question, they use that as their intro. Boom. That's a slight penalty. So please paraphrase. Very important in the IELTS test. And the last one is illegible. It means the examiner cannot understand your handwriting. This is not a problem in the computer-based test. It's only a problem in the paper-based test. Okay. Illegible handwriting. Your handwriting doesn't need to be beautiful, right? It just needs to be readable. What if the examiner cannot read it? Then they will give it to another examiner who will, do his or her best to understand your handwriting. If the second examiner doesn't understand your handwriting again, it will be given to a third examiner. And if the third examiner doesn't understand your handwriting, you will get a band score 1. Okay, so I asked a former examiner how many times he's given that penalty. He was an examiner for about 15 years. He said only once, because they do try their best to understand. Usually, the second person will understand your handwriting, but please don't risk it. Please write legibly. Okay. Oh, here's a good question. Allowed po bang putulin ng word kapag wala ng space? Lagyan lang ng dash, then isulat yung kalahati ng word sa susunod na space. Thank you. Good question. So let me translate. Is it a good idea, okay, to cut the words if they don't fit in the space provided? We did this a lot in high school, right? In our notebooks. The thing is, you don't need to justify your handwriting. You don't need to fill out the spaces perfectly. If you know that the word won't fit on the right side of your paper, then just write it on the next line. You don't need to cut it. You're not trying to save space or save on your paper. Okay, you already paid for it, so please don't cut your words. Okay, they might be considered as wrong spelling. Don't cut them. A word should be complete. Right? Just write them on the next page. Don't worry too much about that. Other questions?
What extent?
Is it okay to have erasures? Yes, of course. That's why they're asking you to use pencils. Okay lang yan. Okay, if it's better to correct rather than to leave the mistake on the paper. So if you see a mistake, please correct it. Just make sure that you erase cleanly because anything written on the answer sheet will be considered part of your answer. That's why, guys, don't write anything on the border of your answer sheet because I've seen people write notes to the examiner. Please, sir, I need to pass this test. It's my fifth time to take the IELTS. Don't write anything there. It will be considered part of your answer. And that's not very professional. Okay. But if it's within the essay, yes, go ahead, please erase. Okay. That's why pencils are recommended. Next, is it okay to start with task two first, then task one? Yeah, sure. Of course. Okay. Is it good to do this for all of your tests, or is this okay for everyone? No. Personally, I do task one first because I know I can finish it in about maybe 10 to 15 minutes because I've been doing it for so long. So that gives me more time for writing task two so I can concentrate a lot on my essay. Okay, but if you're more comfortable with doing task two first, then you can also do that. Remember, you should use the scientific method for this one. Why don't you try task one, task two on one day? Okay, and then the next day you can try task two, task one, and see which one is more comfortable for you. Okay, there's no single answer for this one. It varies from person to person. Okay, wow, thank you. These are nice questions. Okay, so that's the answer sheet. Now, some advice on how to use this answer sheet. Okay. People always ask, sir, how do we show the paragraphing? Can I just indent my next paragraph? Most examiners prefer spaces. Intentions are optional. If you want to indent, you can do that, no problem. If you don't want to indent, you can also do that. I don't indent my paragraphs, but I always make sure to leave spaces. So how many spaces should you leave? It can be one, two, or even three spaces. Okay. Now I've been attending training with British Council. Obviously, I got the shirt. Okay. And with IDP for about 15 years now. And most examiners advise that you leave two spaces. Okay. Write your first paragraph, leave two spaces, second paragraph, leave two spaces, and then, until you finish your conclusion. Why two spaces? Because it's easier to see if there are two spaces. Secondly, if you need to add something and you use up one line, then there's still one line remaining. Okay. Sir, is that okay? I have two spaces here, then only one space here, and then two spaces here again. Yeah, it doesn't matter. The number of spaces don't matter as long as there are spaces. So make sure that it's easy to read. Remember, most of your examiners are what, in their 40s and 50s. So don't give them a hard time. Okay? Please leave spaces. Hindi tayo nagtitipid sa papel. All right? Okay. Is it also applicable for the computer basis? Yes, even for the CBT, if you want to if you want to write task two first, then you can do that. In fact, when I took my computer based test, okay, I started with task two. Okay, then I got distracted, or maybe I felt sleepy. I stopped writing it. Then I started on my task one. I finished it, and then I went back to task two. Okay. Now, is that do I recommend doing that? No, no. Please don't do that. It's better to focus on one task at a time. Okay, so you can do task one first or task two first, but don't do what I did. In fact, I think that was my lowest score in writing. Nung ginawa ko yun. I only got, uh, I think 7.5 for that one. I usually get 8.5. okay, for writing. But when I did that, naka 7.5 lang ako. So yeah, I try experimenting during my IELTS test. So not recommended. Okay. Hmm. Oh, good question, sir. Can we write in all caps? Um. Okay. Again, I'm just gonna tell you what the examiners say. Okay. Um. You can do it, but we don't like it. Okay. If you attend sessions with examiners, they will tell you, you can do it, but we don't like it. Okay, officially, theoretically, it shouldn't affect your score if you write in all caps. Okay, but remember, most examiners are English teachers or professors or they're language experts. So for them, capitalization is an issue. If you're just targeting maybe, okay, if you have relatives who are just targeting 5.5 or 5 or maybe even a 4 for spouse visas kasi 4 lang, okay? Then it won't matter. If they're comfortable with all caps, go ahead. Walang problema. But if you're trying to get at least 6.5 or higher, then you should know the rules for capitalization because that's part of grammar, right? Okay, so for those aiming for higher score, 6.5 or more, make sure that you know how to capitalize properly. Madali lang naman siya. You capitalize the first letter of each sentence and then you capitalize proper nouns. If there are specific names, you capitalize them. Okay, where can we find trusted essay samples that we can read? Oh, just make sure they're official. So you can go to the IELTS website. So IELTS.org, that's a good one, or IELTSasia.org. Okay, or the British Council website or the IDP website, or you can take a look also at my Facebook page because I've been posting sample essays, task one, task two for the past 6 or 7 years. But actually, I don't like my old essays. So if you're gonna use my Facebook page, I advise just looking at my 2021, 2020, and 2019 posts because those are the best ones. Of course, we get better each year. Okay, and later I can also show you some books that you can use. Okay, thank you for the nice question. Okay, next question. Will you get a higher score? Okay, again, let's have a survey. Please type yes or no. Okay. Um, do you think you'll get a higher score if you use cursive handwriting? Cursive, dugtong-dugtong. In Kapampangan, tayid-tayid. Okay. Will it help you get a higher score? Yes or no? You know what? They teach this in some review centers. It sounds funny. It sounds like a common sense answer, pero I've heard some people who teach IELTS say that writing in cursive will get you a higher score. Oh my God, tayid. No. Okay. Actually, even if you have a beautiful handwriting, if you write like a calligrapher, they don't grade you based on the beauty, okay? Sorry, on the looks of your writing, unfortunately. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten, nines and 8.5s in my in my essay because I have terrible handwriting. Okay? So guys, no, you're not required to write in cursive. As long as it's legible, okay lang. Okay, you can print if you want, but please make an effort to use uppercase and lowercase lettering. Okay? So please hindi porke nag-cursive kayo, mataas na yung score ninyo. Okay? All right, other questions about the grading system and the writing task? So if I ask you to write, what would you have done? Hmm. Let me think. What are the common mistakes ba? Okay, I can think of one right now. So guys, you can type your questions anytime. Okay, now let's work on a question. I think I have time. It's 10:02. Okay, that's perfect. So let's have a short exercise now. Okay, so some questions here. Um, Hi sir. Sa writing po ba, accepted na din po ba ang all caps? No, like what I said, please avoid using all caps. Okay? You can do that for listening and reading, okay, but not for writing. Next. So what is the proper format for task 2? What do you mean by proper format? at least 250 words, 4 to 5 paragraphs. Okay, most essays can be answered with 4 paragraphs. Okay, but please don't write 3 paragraphs or six. Okay, it's gonna be badly structured or it's gonna be too long. Okay, so ideally it's 4 or 5. What else? Please remember that the shortest paragraph should be your conclusion. Okay, and your longest paragraphs should be the body paragraphs. If your conclusion is longer than your body paragraph, then it's badly written. You will probably get a low score for cohesion and coherence and maybe for task achievement. Okay? May ano yan eh, may itsura sila eh. Okay? So medium, intro, large, body paragraph, and then small, conclusion. So ganun po yung itsura nila. Okay, did I answer that? Proper format? Use uppercase and lowercase. Oh, good question. So, can we use abbreviations or contractions? So, what are abbreviations? Shortcut words. Okay, instead of using street, maybe you write ST. Okay, the rule is if it's internationally recognized, you can probably use it. Okay, for instance, you can write US or the US or the USA instead of the United States of America because your examiner will probably understand that one. Okay, you can write what NASA because or WHO or UNICEF or the UN United Nations because these are internationally recognized. But I don't think your examiner will understand Pag-asa or DPWH. Remember, checking is now done in the UK. It used to be in the past it was done in country sa Philippines mismo. Okay, but now they centralize checking because so many people are complaining about it. Okay, so centralized na. Mabuti pa yung paper nyo nakarating sa UK. So your test paper will actually get to the UK ahead of you. Okay. Anyway, uh, what was the question? How about how about contractions? What are examples of contractions? Shouldn't, wouldn't, couldn't, haven't, don't, I'm. It's not advisable to use them because this is formal writing. Do you remember your thesis when you were in university? Okay, did your teacher allow you to use contractions? No, because they're considered informal, guys. Contractions should be used in speaking. Okay, because they make you sound more fluent and they're easier to say. However, for writing, please don't use them. A second disadvantage is that nababawas yung word count because they only count don't as one word. If you write do not, then that's 2 words. So imagine if you use 10 contractions in your writing, may minus 10 ka na sa word count mo. Okay? So it's disadvantageous to do that. Please don't do that. It will affect task achievement. It will also affect lexical resource or your vocabulary because these are considered less formal. Okay? ETC, no, don't use that. Okay, doesn't a lot of people do that when giving examples. Okay, don't use ETC. Just say the things that you know. Okay, here's a sample. Many wealthy nations, such as Japan, the United States, ETC. Wag na, tanggalin nyo na lang yung ETC. Just say such as Japan and the United States. You don't need to say ETC because it's understood that you're just giving examples. That there's more than those examples that you've given. Okay. Next, common topics nowadays in task 2. You know what? I have some good news for you. The topics for writing, they're just being cycled. They use the same topics every year. Nire-recycle lang yung mga yan. So, if you study topics that came out in the past, there's a good probability that this will be the topics that you will get in your test. So, ano lang to, sipag lang to eh. The more you read, the better your chances of passing the test. So minsan, ang nagsasucceed di naman yung matalino, yung masipag. Okay? Even if you're very smart, but you don't read a lot, okay? You don't familiarize yourselves with the topics or you don't practice, then you're probably gonna get a low score. Because you might get unlucky. You might get a topic that you don't know anything about. Okay? Some common topics nowadays. I didn't prepare this one. Maybe I'll just share it with your uh because I have a file. My students report to me. Okay, kung anong lumabas sa test nila, I have it on file. I'll just share it with your admin, with the admin of this group, and they will post it on the page. Bonus ko na lang yun sa inyo. All right? Sabi nga nila, ask and you shall receive. Yan. Do I have other questions? Sir, kapag hindi umabot sa 250, do we get a deduction? Yes, of course. I already explained that. Task, you get a deduction for task achievement. -1 for every 50 words missing. Okay, so -1, -2, -3. Okay, now let's work on a sample topic. Yes, we have time. So let's take a look. I'm just going to open my file. Here you go. Oops. Hmm. Okay. So let me share my screen. So I'm gonna try to I'm gonna use something that's very simple so that it's easy to follow. Okay, please tell me if it's not readable para mas malakihan natin. Yeah. So here's the topic. Something that's very close to your hearts kasi mag-abroad kayo. Okay? Some people, okay, nowadays, yeah, a lot of IELTS topics start with nowadays. Nowadays, okay, let me just enlarge para mas madaling basahin. Mhm. I think 20 is readable. There you go. Okay. So nowadays, more and more people are going, kayo to overseas, okay, to work. However, some people, some people say that it is still better to work in your own country. Very common topic. Okay, so guys, now this is an example of a common topic. I've seen this a lot over the years. Okay, I've seen this several times. I think I see this topic like 2 or 3 times a year. So is it possible that you will get this topic? Yes, but what you need to remember is every time IELTS recycles a topic, they actually change the task. Ano yung task? Task is what they want you, what they ask you to do. So they can ask you to what? They can ask what is your opinion? Okay. They might ask you, hmm, do you agree or disagree? Okay. Or they might ask something complicated like, to what extent do you agree or disagree? Okay. Why did I put them together? Because these are actually answered the same way. Isa lang yung approach yan. Okay, usually, if it's a GT candidate, they just say, what is your opinion? But if you're taking the academic test, they might use to what extent do you agree or disagree? Here's a tip. To what extent is not really important. You can actually cross it out. Tanggalin nyo na lang. Just cross it out. Okay? So, what's left? Do you agree or disagree? Eh, di mas madali na siyang, sagutin. By the way, or means you choose one. Okay? Hindi po and or are different words. Uh, Make sure that you understand the difference between those. So this is one possible task. Or they might ask you to discuss both views. Okay. Another possible task might be discuss both views and give your opinion. Okay. They might ask you, dame, what are the advantages of each? And they might also ask you, what are the disadvantages of each? Or do the, ha, di mahirap, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? Okay, so I'm going to teach you how to answer each one of these. Yeah, yeah. What are the advantages and disadvantages? So, um, you just need to adjust to them. Okay, so unahin natin to. Which one do we do first? Ano bang maganda? Okay, let's start with The first one, what is your opinion? Do you agree or disagree? Or to what extent do you agree or disagree? Now, I'm going to give you 1 minute. Okay, 1 minute. I want you to, if you have a piece of paper with you, that's much better. So I want you to think of this. How many paragraphs will you be writing for this one? And what will be your main topics for each paragraph? Okay. I will give you 1 minute to do this so that you can test yourself before I show you my approach. Okay. 1 minute. All right. That's 1 minute. So I'm going to show you one possible approach to this one. The first paragraph, I prefer to number my paragraphs, by the way, will of course be your intro plus your opinion. Just write I plus O. You don't need to write the whole thing. Okay. Oh, does this mean you have to do this during the test? It's highly recommended, of course, but you do this on another piece of paper. Okay. Not on your answer sheet, maybe on the questionnaire because you actually have white spaces on your questionnaire. So let's start with Mm, the more popular opinion. Okay, abroad is better. Abroad is better. So what do you need to do? You just need to focus on this one. You don't need to discuss the other side. Okay? Because if they wanted you to discuss both, they will tell you to discuss both. So just think of 3 reasons why working abroad is better. So of course, the most obvious one is okay, what? Main reason natin, no? Higher salaries, maybe. And then you can include better benefits because they are related. Okay. Another one would be, oh, let's take a look at the comments. hmm Okay. Higher salaries, better benefits. Anything else? hmm Maybe you can say, better career opportunities. Okay. Remember, each paragraph should have a clear central topic. Don't mix them up. Huwag niyong paghalu-haluin. Similar ideas together, dissimilar ideas, different paragraphs. That's another one. And and if it's already enough, okay, kunwari, if you've written 3 paragraphs and it's already 225 or 230 words, then finish it, conclusion na. But if you only written like 200 words, pagdating ng third paragraph, then you can still add an extra paragraph. Okay? Mhm. Chance to earn what? Citizenship. There you go. You can also say that. And then finally, your conclusion. So this is one way. I'm not saying that this is the only way. There are many approaches, but this is definitely a good start. Okay. How about if your opinion is the opposite one? Okay. So you have your intro. Sorry. So intro plus your opinion. Uh, okay, working in the homeland is better. Okay. So you just need to think of 2 or 3 reasons why it's better to work in your homeland. By the way, take a look at the question. It didn't say Philippines, no? Didn't say Philippines. Okay, so please don't think that they're only asking you to discuss the situation in your country because it can be, for example, a British guy working in the Philippines or an American working in India. Okay, it can be an Irish person working in what in Africa. Okay, So think internationally, please, because I see people writing in their introduction in my country, in the Philippines. Please don't mention that. Okay, in your introduction, you can use the Philippines or your whatever your country is. Okay, as an example in the body paragraph, but please think international when you write because the name of the test is International English Language Testing System. So why is it better to work in your own home? Because you okay, because the family and friends are there. In short, okay, you have your your support group nearby. So if you get sick or if you have problems, you can easily find someone to talk to. Of course, you can do that online, but it's better if there's a physical presence. Syempre. Okay. Another reason why working in your homeland is better. Mhm. Any other reason? Maybe it's because it's a familiar environment. Okay. So why is it better to work in a familiar environment? Because you can avoid language barriers. Ooh, benign language barriers. If I were you, I'm going to use that. Okay. You can avoid culture shock. Oh, that's another benign term. Okay. Culture shock. What else? And maybe you can also avoid racial discrimination. So I've just given you three very high level benign terms: language barriers, culture shock, racial discrimination. Okay? Tapos, pwede na yan. You've probably written like 230 or 240. So finish it. Conclusion na. So that's another. Okay. Oh, those are good ideas. Darla said it's an opportunity to serve your own people. Okay, let's write that down. Okay. Opportunity to serve your own people. In short, you're giving me a patriotic reason. Okay, so patriotic reasons. Oh, good one. Thank you. Another one is avoid homesickness. Homesickness, you will probably mention here. Okay, in paragraph two, avoid homesickness. You know, a lot of people underestimate the value of making an outline. Um, Guys, a piece of advice: you don't need to write an essay every day. You don't. In fact, I suggest that maybe twice or three times a week. Okay, you just choose maybe 4 or 5 IELTS topics and then just work on an outline for 30 minutes for each. So in that way, you'll be able to familiarize yourselves with more topics. Diba? Instead of one, just working on one topic once a week, which is actually not enough. Maybe you can work on an outline for 10 questions every week. So that's 10 topics already. Okay. The nice thing about outlines is you will actually realize your weaknesses and your strengths. Ay, wala pala akong alam sa topic na to. Then you will know what to research. Okay. Because sometimes you think you know how to discuss something, but then you come to the test. And then wala ka palang alam, hindi ka man umabot ng 150. That's a very expensive mistake. So outlining will help you do that, help you avoid that. Sorry. So if I were you, I would I would set an alarm on my phone. Okay, twice a week, maybe TTH, maybe Monday, Friday, and then sulat nyo lang practice outlining or outline writing task two. Okay, in our company we actually provide guidance to our students. Okay, we have this exclusive Facebook group where we provide guidance for them every day. Well, we try to, but okay. Kasi ang problema sa sa online teaching is, the distance from the teacher and from the classmates. So sometimes uh maintaining discipline can be a challenge. Okay? So guys, there's a third one. Let me show you one more. Okay? For me, okay, I'd probably approach this differently. Ito yung sa akin. So my first paragraph would be my intro plus my opinion, and ito yung sasabihin ko. Okay. It depends on the situation. So this one is advanced, no? This is an advanced approach, but I like this one. Okay. So my paragraph two, I would say, okay, work abroad if, okay, what are the conditions? If you're young, okay. Why? Because you're still energetic. You can still handle the stresses, and you're still excited to do this. Okay. And then if you are, maybe if you're single, it would be better. Okay. And then for my third paragraph, oops, what would I say here? Okay. Uh, work home if, okay. Kailan, if you are older, so you can see your children, grow up, you can be there for them. Okay. If you have a family, and maybe if you're already established. Okay. Why? Because it's a chance to help your countrymen. Okay? So kung ako, ganito po yung approach ko diyan. And then finally, paragraph 4 conclusion na. You can use any of these, but if you ask me personally, okay, yung ito, I like this third outline. And I think the examiner will appreciate this more. Right? Okay, I found some sample essays that place their opinions in the conclusion. Is that format okay? If you're good enough, okay, you can actually do that. Okay, and those writers might have mentioned their opinion in the intro, but in a different way. But if you follow the grading descriptor strictly, okay, you should be writing your opinion in the introduction. Okay? In fact, I've submitted several essays to examiners, and that was the comment. They said, "Why don't yeah, you can do this, but why risk it? Okay, we'd be able to understand your essay better if we see it from the start, and then if you repeat it." Okay, so unless you're very confident about using that format, confident about your skills, I wouldn't suggest it. I would suggest what the examiners say. Okay, and to really give a detailed answer, maybe you can show me the essay. Say I haven't seen it. It might be written with a different style, but in general, okay, make your opinion clear from the very start. So, ma'am, please take a look when the essay was written and who wrote it. Okay, that might give us a better idea on if it's usable or not. Okay. So questions, meron pa ba? Okay. Thank you. What if next tayo? What if they ask you to discuss both views? Now this is simple. Okay, if they ask you to discuss both views, you just write your intro plus your opinion. Sir, ilang sentences ang paragraph 1? 2 to 3 sentences. Intro, opinion, 2 sentences. Okay, so 2 to 3 would be okay. Discuss both views. Do you actually need an opinion for this one? You don't because they didn't ask you. They just ask you to discuss both views. Hindi kayo pinapapili. So no need to say what your preference is. Okay? Just discuss side A. Parang lumang-luma. Side A, it's better to work abroad. And then you can discuss side B. It's better to work in your own nation. Own nation. And then you can already write your conclusion. Make sure that you have 2 to 3 ideas per paragraph. It's better to work abroad. Why? Because of the salary, okay, and the benefits. Okay, maybe some people can consider it as an adventure. Okay, some people will consider it as a chance to learn not only the language but also their cooking, their culture, their music. Okay, and then side B, it's better to work in your own country because you can avoid problems like what? Like initials na lang, like homesickness, HS, like racial discrimination, like language barriers, and culture shock. Okay. Also, you're working in a familiar environment. Okay, and you're there with your family and friends. There you go. And maybe you can say you're serving your own country. Pwede? Conclusion na yan. Okay, so very simple. Um, Here's a good question, sir. If you say it depends, it means 50-50 po ba yung approach ko? Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah. So this is called a conditional opinion. Okay. So as long what you need to do here is you just mention the conditions. Okay. So yeah, I think parang ganun nga, parang 50-50 din siya. Pero it doesn't mean that you didn't choose. Pumili ka pa rin. Okay? It depends is not the same as saying that you don't have an opinion. You still have an opinion. What is your opinion? It depends. Okay? So malinaw pa rin siya. Next, where were we? How about if they ask you to discuss both views and give your opinion? So it's going to be similar to this one. Okay, but you need to add an extra paragraph. Actually, there's a style where you can use 4 paragraphs only for this one, but a lot of examiners prefer the 5 paragraph pattern. Okay? So, yan, dadagdagan lang natin siya. Let me put it on the next page. Discuss both views and give your opinion. Intro, one view, other view, your opinion, conclusion. So that's 5 paragraphs. Okay. So what do you do here? Again, you can choose to say that it's better to work abroad. Lagyan natin dito, it's better to work abroad. Or it's better to work in your own country. It doesn't matter because your opinion is always right. Or you can even say it depends. Just make sure that you're not just copying what you already said here. Okay. For example, if you just use the same arguments, then you'd probably get a deduction for task achievement and coherence and cohesion. Napapansin nyo, laging dun yung deduction. It's always task achievement and coherence and cohesion. Not so much on grammar, not so much on vocabulary. Okay? So, what I do here is maybe I'd erase this one, letter C. Okay? And then, mm, what else? I'd probably erase that one also and this one. Okay, so do you see what I did there? I made sure that I'm not just repeating my arguments. Okay, if your opinion is the same as one of the other paragraphs, then make sure well distributed yung ideas ninyo. Make sure that you're not being repetitive. Okay, so that's an example. Next, what are the advantages of each? This is actually similar to discuss both views. So we don't need to show it to you. Okay, I'm just gonna put it in the previous task. So discuss both views or yan, similar approaches lang naman sila. Finally, the most complicated one. Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? If this were if this is the topic task that you'll get, I suggest 5 paragraphs. Okay, again, intro plus opinion. By the way, guys, you can actually write this with 4, pero mas madaling pakita kasi kung 5. Diba? So why not do it the easy way? Ba't niyo papahirapan sarili niyo? So for me, um, do the advantages, kulang yata itong question, do the advantages of working abroad, there you go, outweigh the disadvantages. There you go. So my opinion is there are more positives than negatives. Okay? Outweigh means alin yung mas matimbang. So it's not a good idea to discuss the same amount of negatives and positives because they're asking if the benefits outweigh, okay, the drawbacks. Okay, you need to choose one. So I said there are more positives than negatives. So in paragraph 2, you discuss the negatives, just one. And then paragraph 3, you discuss the positive, and then another positive in paragraph 4. And then you can write your conclusion. Okay? So dito pa lang, with just the outline, you're already proving your opinion. There are more positives 2 than negatives 1. By the way, This is already a very, very good arrangement. Please do not interchange them because some people would do positive, positive, negative. No. Okay. If you say that there are more positives, then the examiner should read, okay, should remember the positives. Okay. If you write something negative towards the end of the essay, that is what they'll remember. Okay. So please follow this format. No need to interchanges. This is already quite good. Negative, positive, positive. Okay. However, if your opinion is the opposite, there are more negatives than positives, then you just use the opposite signal. So positive, negative, negative. Okay. So let's think of one negative. If you work abroad, there might be, take a look at the words that I use. Might be. Oh, ang bigat ng buntong hininga na. Okay, so might be. So I didn't say will be, no? Sinabi ko might be. Okay? Because it's not a guarantee that it will happen. Eh. Baka naman hindi mangyari. So there might be problems like what? Like homesickness. There might be problems like language barriers. Pero hindi ko may mention you. I would avoid saying racial discrimination. Why? Because that will make the negatives very heavy. It will make them very serious. You don't want that. Sinabi mo nga, konti yung negatives eh. So just, the light negatives. So language barriers, homesickness, okay? And then focus on the positives. Ano ba yung maganda if you work overseas? Oh man. Okay, the earnings. Okay? The earnings, the benefits. Yun yung makukuha ninyo. Okay, another one is maybe the adventure. So you can, and the learning that you're gonna get. Okay, and then conclusion na po. Okay, so this is how I will outline them. So make sure that you understand the topic and then you understand the task. But because they change them from time to time, iniiba-iba po nila yan. Okay, and one thing that you can do also before you actually write your essay is you should prepare your vocabulary. A lot of people don't do that. Kaya nape-penalty sila, memorized. This is the reason why they just keep on copying the words written in the question. So what I do, okay, in my test is this one. On my scratch paper, I actually do this now. Guys, you take 5 minutes for writing your outline and your vocabulary. Okay lang yung 5 minutes. 250 words is writable in 30 minutes or less naman. May 40 minutes kayo eh. Okay? Vocabulary. Look at the question. And then think of the words that will be repeated over and over when you write this essay. Ano ba yung mga ulit-ulit na lalabas dyan? Okay? So maybe now nowadays, you'd probably write this in your intro. Tapos, more and more. And then what else? People. Mhm. Uh, overseas. Work. Tapos, own country. Then think of just maybe, 2 to 3 synonyms or, some paraphrasing that you can use. So imbis na nowadays, you can say recently. You can say, today. What else? You can even say in recent years. Okay. So don't say nowadays because they already use that in the question. How about more and more? You can say increasing. Kung gusto niyo ng kompleto, an increasing number of individuals. Increasing number. Okay. You can use words like rising or growing, a growing number of people. How about people? You can say men. This one is my favorite, men and women. You can also say individuals. Pwede. Or related terms, migrants, immigrants. Okay. How about overseas? Overseas would be abroad, other countries, foreign nations. Work, work, job, related terms, career. Career is nice. What else? Employment. Okay. Earn a living. That's another one. And then your own country, your your motherland or your fatherland. You can also call it your native country. You can also call it your homeland. Okay. What else? You can also call it your native soil. Ang dami. Okay. So in this way, okay, it will be easier for you to get a higher score, more than a 7, okay, for vocabulary because you've prepared it. And then writing the outline will help you avoid going off topic, okay, and it will help you visualize your essay. So writing an outline will help you increase your score for task achievement and coherence and cohesion. Okay, yeah. Do I have time to write a sample? Okay. So questions, guys? Tanong po kayo. Okay, while you're typing your questions, let me finish the presentation. Here you go. So to answer some of your previous questions, oops, sorry. Okay. All right, konting promo po. Okay, ito lang yung kapalit nung ano namin, pag-guess namin. So our next batch, okay, oh, sorry. If you enroll in our online IELTS course until June 30, then you'll be receiving a 500 peso discount. So from 4799 to 4299 na lang po. Okay, yung review namin, actually we focus on one-on-one. Yes, we have group lectures. Okay, but the main feature of our review is the one-on-one tutorials. So this means you can ask all of the questions that you want, and then the teacher will be focused on you. Okay, you can book your one-on-one appointment and any day from Monday to Sunday. Okay, as early as 8 in the morning, as late as midnight. If you're in another country, we can actually schedule it. Okay, kung gusto nyo, 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. But just request for a slot from our manager, and we will accommodate you. Okay, unlimited drills, listening, reading. Just log into your account on our website, and you'll be able to do as many listening and reading drills as you want in one day. Okay, next. Some of you were asking where to get good examples. Again, you can go to the official IELTS websites. You can go to my FB page if you want to see samples of my work, or I actually compiled, okay, my writing outputs, writing task 1 and writing task 2. We've printed a book, so I collected the most recent questions for both writing task 1 and writing task 2. I wrote an analysis and then some examples. At may kasama pang answer sheet yan. If you want to buy this, we're gonna print it and then ship it to you. It contains answer sheets and sample answers already. So if you're interested, just contact us, contact the manager po. We have a promo right now. Mhm. This is our official Facebook page. There you go. World English Reviews, IELTS, UKVI, Life Skills, and OET. Okay, and if you're interested in OET, I was a former OET interlocutor, so I'm also an expert on that one. We can help you with your English testing needs po. Okay, so I guess that's it for me. Still have classes tomorrow. So may pahabol po bang questions? Anything about writing or IELTS po? Thank you very much nga pala to the admins. No, thank you for inviting us again. We're happy to have shared, our knowledge and expertise with your members. Okay, good luck po sa mga test ninyo. Sana pumasa kayo agad. Okay, so that you can start working on your dreams, have a better life, kumita ng ibang currency bukod sa peso. Okay,
Hello?
thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
So any
Yes.
questions, guys, before we conclude the night? Any questions? From FB?
From
Oh,
Facebook. Can we
uh,
avail the soft copy version, Sir Jay?
Yeah, of course. You can avail of the soft copy. Pwede naman po. Ay, pero if you're taking the paper-based test, I think it's better if you write on paper. Oh nga pala, no, piece of some advice, closing advice for me. Um, if you're taking the computer-based test, okay, you work on your typing. Okay, work Microsoft Word, pwede na yan. Okay? If you're taking the paper-based test, you better write on paper kasi maninibago kayo. Okay? So the way you practice should be suited to what kind of to what kind of test you're taking. Yung practice ninyo dapat katulad ng mangyari sa exam. So for that question, baka mas okay na printed version yung kunin mo if you're taking the paper-based test. Okay, since nagta-type pa sila ng questions, I have a few naman. Okay, kayo yung tatanungin ko, admin. Surprise, surprise.
Sure.
Palagay nyo, gaano katagal ang magandang preparation period? So, for how long should you prepare? Mga ano ba? 3 days? 1 year? 10 years? 5 years? Ma'am, ikaw, palagay mo.
For me, sir, it really depends on the student.
Yes.
Because for me, in my case, when I was
Mm-hmm.
practicing for my IELTS, for my writing, I did not even put time on it. I just read some books. I just read
Mm-hmm.
some books and then
Sabihin matalino ka talaga.
no, I'm not. It's just that I'm after with the overall, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
US. Probably US ka, no?
So I did
All
not
right.
give any time for review,
I
but
see.
I still got 6.5
Mm.
for it.
Guys, I don't
So
mean I don't mean enrolling sa center. Even yung self-review kasi, dapat may yan, may timing yan because a lot of review centers offer unlimited reviews. What's my take on that? I don't believe in those. Bakit? If you want to succeed, give it a deadline. Do you want to
mm-mm,
leave the country now while you're in your 20s or gusto mo makaalis when you're 41? Diba? Do you want to
it's
be
true.
here 3 years from now or do you want to be here by what? By October so that you can send some nice Christmas gifts to your family. Diba?
Still
Bigyan nyo
waiting for
ng
interview
deadline.
date.
Oo. So guys, according to studies I've read, perfect length of review would be around 6 to 8 weeks. 6 weeks. Please, if you're targeting a high score, don't enroll in those crash courses. Study for 3 days and expect that you're gonna get a passing score for everything. You might be able to do that for listening and reading. And that's gonna be very difficult for speaking and writing. Bigyan nyo ng oras because our brains need time to change. Alam nyo naman yan. You studied, anatomy, neuroplasticity. So, bigyan nyo ng oras. Kung importante talaga yan, bibigyan nyo ng oras. Right?
And
Six to
also
eight weeks would
dedication,
be
sir.
ideal. Oo.
Dedication.
Oo. Ano yan eh. You need to give it time. You need to deserve it. Dedication din talaga. There are a few gifted people who can pass it after studying a few days pero those are far and few in between. Malamang babagsak ka dun sa isa. Okay? Other pieces of advice. Um Writing is a skill. So a skill is developed by doing it by repetition. Okay? Please make sure I'm not telling you you need to enroll in a center, but please make sure that other people can see your writing because it's gonna be very hard to judge your own writing. In the first place, it's yours. Okay, but if other people can easily follow what you wrote, then that's better. Also, it's better if the person looking at your writing knows how it is graded. Okay, kaya nga kami, ang emphasis talaga namin, one-on-one classes para walang hiya-hiyang magtanong. So hindi kayo mapapaya unlike in a group class. Okay, and please don't have your papers if you're gonna enroll with us. Sasabihin ko na to ha. Please don't have your first writing 1 week before the test. Please, okay? Pa-check nyo yung papel nyo 6 weeks before the test, 8 weeks before the test, not 2 days before the exam, because it's gonna be very hard, even for a very good teacher. It's gonna be very hard to help you if you only have 2 days.
That's true.
Commit your mistakes early. Make your mistakes early para may time. Okay? All right.
Okay.
So
I
I think
think
that's
there's a
it.
question, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Wait, I'll just copy it on
Yeah,
Facebook.
from Facebook.
Yes. There you go,
Ma'am Sham,
from chat.
maybe we can share our phone number in the chat box so they can easily contact us.
Yes, sir. From Chacha
Mm,
Agait. Okay.
I did.
Agait. Okay. Anyway, so can we avail the soft copy version? I mean, the book that you've mentioned.
my book. Yeah, of course. Let me just repeat my answer to this one. Pwede naman po, pero it's better, if you're getting the printed version. Ayun nyo ba yun? May kasama ng answer sheets. Because if you're taking the test, paper-based, kailangan yung practicein yung sulat nyo. Baka manibago kayo if you do it the first time during the actual test. Naku, patay tayo dyan. It's like
Oh,
reading a book and then performing surgery the next day.
yeah. I think Chacha is interested so that
Mhm.
Miss Sham,
Please, sir.
can I have the number po so that I can send it to Chacha because she said that yes, I'm interested in buying the soft copy version since I'm here
Okay.
in UAE. Please share so I
Oh,
can
kaya
call
pala.
you.
Okay. Actually, if you look at my
The
wallpaper,
background.
yeah, yan po.
The background.
Hindi ko mabasa. It's 0917. Ano ba to?
Yes.
Nababasa nyo ba? My eyes are
Three nine
Yes.
one seven
Zero nine
six
one
five
seven.
seven 8606.
8606. There you go. Oh, sorry. I sent it privately. Let me send it to everyone. So if you're interested in our services, if you want to know more, text lang po kayo or contact us on Facebook. We will definitely reply to you. We can even give you a phone call. Sabihin nyo lang, tawag, can you please call me? Hindi kami
Wow.
nagtitweet sa load. Tatawagan namin kayo. At di nyo kailangan mag-English pag nag-inquire.
Sun oil. Okay, so any questions? Any more questions, guys?
So good luck na lang po sa writing. Kita-kits tayo. Kaya nyo yan. Consistent and correct practice. That's the secret.
All right.
Okay.
So
See you
I
next
think
time.
that's
Bye-bye.
it. All right. Thank you, DJ, for sharing us your time. So I hope that everyone here in the Facebook Live and Zoom uh, got something to to look forward to on their writing task. So, Mr. M.
Yeah, thank you, Lee J, for your informative lecture, and we're looking for the next session.
All right. So thank you, DJ. Thank you, World
Have a nice
English.
day in
So
behalf of IFNG, Sir Jeff, Miss Gladys, and Mr. M. Thank you. Have a nice day and good night, everyone.
night. Bye.